record here before I forget. Thank you for bearing with us. We started a couple minutes late, so I appreciate your patience here. A couple things before we get started with our session today. This session is being recorded. We are on the Zoom webinar platform, so you do not have the ability to unmute yourselves. We ask that you post any questions, comments, or concerns in the chat or the Q&A, and we will address those towards the end of the session and have time for open discussion and Q&A. And then if you have any technical difficulties during the session, feel free to reach out to me specifically via the chat and I will help support you. The session is being recorded and the recording and the presentation slides from today will be up on our website. I will put that website in the chat momentarily here. And then they will also be up on Illinois WorkNet under the Workforce Wednesday webinars. Tomorrow, you will receive a follow-up email with the exact URL where the recording and slide deck will be housed. And you will also receive a follow-up survey. If you have a couple minutes in your workday, we would greatly appreciate you taking the time to provide feedback on this session and all of our Workforce Wednesday webinars. If there's any professional development that you would like to see in the future, we welcome those suggestions and I can take those to our WIOA PD committee and hopefully implement them for you all for the system. So I believe that's all the housekeeping items I have. I do also want to note that the live transcript is on for your accessibility reasons or even just note-taking purposes. So feel free to utilize that on your Zoom toolbar. And I'm going to start us off with just our beginning Workforce Wednesday polls that we like to do every Wednesday, just to kind of gather a little bit about our audience. So I've went ahead and launched the first one. Where's your local area? So I'm joining you from Central Illinois in Decatur. Our center is actually in Bloomington Normal, but I reside in Decatur, so I am working from home today. And a lot of you looks like are residing from up north, Chicago and Northern Illinois. We have quite a few people from Central Illinois as well, though, so welcome to you all. We'll give everyone a couple more minutes or a couple more seconds here, excuse me. Okay, I'm going to end that and share the results so you can all see too. Looks like most of us are from Central Illinois, but welcome everybody across the state. Thank you for joining. We appreciate you taking the time out of your workday. The next poll is which partner do you best represent? So Title 1, 2, 3, or 4, or if you best represent another WIOA partner and stakeholder or a state or local workforce innovation board. And while you're answering that poll, I did want to address today's session, which is titled Registered Apprenticeships. So what's the fuss? And this is a session that was presented at the WIOA Summit, but wasn't able to present in its full entirety. So we're excited to hear about everything that both Gina from Elgin Community College and Craig are going to present to us today about apprenticeships. So a couple more seconds on this poll, and I'll go ahead and end it. Okay. So it looks like most of you are joining us from Title I, but we have a lot of you sprinkled across the workforce partners. So thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I will be here the whole session if you need anything, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Craig and Gina to get us started.
All right, thanks, Kirsten. Good morning, everyone. Craig Schmidt here with the Calumet Area Industrial Commission. Just quickly, we are a manufacturing membership-based organization. We're located in the Pullman area of Chicago, which is kind of the southern tip of the city there. And then my partner today, Gina DeRosier-Cook with Elgin Community College. I appreciate her today because she kind of got roped into this at the last minute due to some changes. So Gina, thank you for joining me today. Go ahead and we'll get started here. Next slide, thanks. So today our objective today is to learn the different models maybe some myths and benefits of apprenticeships, as well as the collaborative efforts that are needed for a successful outcome. And then we'll also connect you with resources that could assist your students, your clients, and employers and employees. Next slide. So these are just some of the kind of either myths or facts here that people talk about, and you'll see these sprinkled throughout the presentation as we kind of answer these. A lot of it, people think that registered apprenticeships are too costly. Is training too big of a cost for your organization? People are concerned that if they train someone that they'll go elsewhere. That's very real. People do think that it involves unions, or a union must be involved. Employers also think that they don't want the government to run their business. They think apprenticeships programs are going to change that. People, organizations think that they're fine. Our training works just fine. We're good. Others think the European model won't work here in the U.S. And then people also think that it's not for my industry. So we're going, as we go through, we'll answer these some of these questions here. Next, I'm going to now turn this over to Gina. Go ahead.
So one of the common myths that we have is registered apprenticeships are basically the same as other types of training programs that any business may have, or that the government dictates the occupational training protocols. And really, nothing could be farther from the truth. There's 5 core components of a registered apprenticeship, and that's the employer involvement. And then with that employer, you're going to work on structured on-the-job training with clear learning objectives. So both the employer and the student, and in this case, our college, knows what's happening on site, and then the related instruction in the classroom. And from that, you're hoping that your student or worker is going to get those skills gained so that they can earn a national occupational credential, and so that they'll stay with that company. So they're not only learning that credential, but they're also learning your company way. You're really pouring funds into that individual so that you're making an investment on a really well-trained and happy employee. And the government doesn't dictate those protocols. That is something that is a give and take relationship that you will have with whoever your agency is, in coming up with those on-the-job learning outcomes and determining even the path of the instruction that will happen, and how the student will obtain class. Are they going to be part-time students, part-time workers? Are they going to be full-time students, part-time workers? There's a lot of different ways that you can improve on that to make it your own. Next slide.
Right, and just to add to that, it does give a structured approach for an employee, so that employee does know where they need to go, what they need to do, and what they will earn over the next several years. So it really, it outlines that plan for them, their training plan. There are 3 different types of Department of Labor registered apprenticeship programs. There is the traditional, the time-based apprenticeship program that has been in place for decades. Apprentices in this are required they are required a certain number of minimum hours of on-the-job training, and that typically ranges from like 1 to 6 years, and working 2,000 hours, approximately 2,000 hours per year. So it's based on time that they this apprenticeship program is 3 years, it's 4 years long, it's 2,000 hours per year. Once you're finished with those hours, then you become a skilled apprentice. But along with that, because of the 2,000 hours, there is a required 144 hours of classroom time. So that's where the educational partner comes in to provide that instruction. So you have the instruction from say a community college, and then you have the on-the-job learning, which is 2,000 hours. So and so that's how the time-based works. The competency-based, is pretty much, it doesn't require a certain number of hours, but apprentices are required to demonstrate that they have achieved a set of competencies that their employer has identified as being necessary to be skilled in that occupation. It does require that there is some related training instruction, but it doesn't require necessarily how much. Again, the employer is going to determine that. The Department of Labor does expect all apprenticeships to last at least 2,000 hours, meaning 1 year or more, so that a student can fully practice and demonstrate, because they're demonstrating that they can do the job to the employer. And then the hybrid is it's a combination of both. It requires the 144 hours of classroom time. It requires for each 2,000 hours, but then it's not necessarily required by 2,000, 4,000 hours. It's required by the competency. So you have your instruction, and then you demonstrate that on site. And it's not necessarily based on length. So they're just a little complicated, but it's if you really think about it, it's what is the apprentice, what classes are they going to take, and then what are they going to learn on the job to make sure that they are skilled in that occupation. There's different delivery models. There's full-time work, part-time school. I know I work with a lot of manufacturers, and that's the way they operate. There's full-time school and then part-time work. And then you have your ICAP model, which is part-time school and work. Kind of usually it's like a 8-week working and then maybe an 8-week in school. And that could vary. It could be 16 weeks, but you just go back and forth. And then there's front-loaded, where you take all the education in advance, and then you learn how to do the job. And it's really kind of like, I explained as a CDL license, right? You need that license before you can really drive. So you're taking all that education up front, and then you're going to do the practicing. Here on the right is a wage progression scale. With every apprenticeship program, there must be a wage progression component. As you can see from this example here, it's kind of 3 levels, or if you look at it 3 years, there's always a beginning wage. So let's say you start at $18 an hour, and then after you complete level 1 or year 1, and you've completed those competencies, then you move up to the $18.36. And then you go to level 2 or year 2. Once you complete that, your wage increases to $20.89. And then your level 3 or your year 3, your ending wage is at $23.61. So you can see as an employee, that, okay, I'm going to start at this wage, but when I'm done in 4 years, I know what my salary is going to be. So, and I also know what classes I need to take and what I'm going to be learning on the job. So it's just really, it just outlines that training plan. Yes, go ahead, Kate.
I was just going to add that I like to, with businesses and our apprentices, look at this as kind of their map to career success. And not too many industries or other training models do you have this clear path of what needs to be done and what's happening at every step. And this is all part of that negotiation process at the beginning with the business to make sure that it fits within their model. And then when you're selling that to an apprentice, that they understand all of these different benchmarks and what this looks like. So we kind of call it the map at ECC, and that's been some information that businesses are responsive to, is the word map and kind of pathing that out.
Next slide, please. Here is an example, kind of a time-based apprenticeship program, and it's a welding apprenticeship. So if you look here on the left, you'll see the classes, the courses that are outlined. You got year 1, you got year 2, year 3, year 4. So an individual knows, okay, I have to take these classes over the next several years. And then on the right is the work processes, or your on-the-job learning. They're going to have to spend 400 hours of time making sure that they can demonstrate their care and use of welding equipment. They're going to spend 500 hours on gas welding, etc. So it's very, very, very mapped out in that way. Next slide. Here's one related to CNAs. You see on the left-hand side, this to me is really kind of a front-loaded, but also a hybrid, because you really can't do a lot of the things on the right until you completed all these modules and the completion of the CNA exam. It's also a little bit of a competency model, because once you get that CNA exam, as you see on the right, there's not hours attached to this. So it's just making sure that they are able to demonstrate that they can fulfill these tasks. Okay.
Okay. So registered apprenticeship programs are expensive. We hear that all the time when we're speaking with businesses, but really selling all the benefits to a registered apprenticeship for not only the business, but also the potential student is important. So here are some videos that we have from a business, as well as hearing from some of our apprentices here at ECC.
Well, we decided that we were going to need to cultivate our own maintenance team based on the current job markets, the continued demand for highly skilled maintenance technicians, and just the specific nature of the print pack business. So we thought it was best to basically grow our own, find associates that were interested, that were already a part of the print pack culture. And, you know, if they were interested, enroll them into this program and let them go with it. And it's worked very well so far.
I think that's an important piece, is that taking someone that is already at your facility, who understands your culture and who wants to grow in their career, is a great place for a lot of businesses to start. And we've had great success with places like Print Pack, you know, in this current job market, growing their own workers.
I've got 50 rooftops. I have 30 furnaces, 20 heat pumps, and a cooling tower. And I need people that can take care of that. So I can't find these people, so I will grow these people. ECC, with reaching out into the community and to me about different kinds of apprentice programs. So we had a relationship, but it came to me that I needed a HVAC program. And so I reached back to them and they put one together. I've done a lot of work with Elgin Community College. We've sent people to their HVAC program, skilled people, to get better. They're close in their proximity. I think they have been very enthusiastic about meeting my goals. So they were a good choice. There are many people at Otto that started on the production bench that are now managers or supervisors. They've been here 25 or 30 years. And we could train them. But for some of the things, CNC, HVAC, it's harder for us to train them. We need outside schooling to help do that. So we turn to apprentice programs rather than internal training. We have a machine shop, a tool and die shop, a molding shop, and those people are important to us. So we have an apprentice program in CNC machining. We have an apprentice program in tool and die. We have an apprentice program in mold repair. Now HVAC. We have 12 apprentices now in the building, and one of them is getting ready to graduate from the program he's in. Is now starting his 5th year. I know them all by first name. They call me Tom. I see them all the time. They're an important part of our company, and they know it. They're not prima donnas. They don't feel that they're special. They just know that they're in a work environment that's investing in them. That's going to be a good environment for maybe the rest of their career. Some people don't think that you can afford an apprentice. And in today's environment, I would say you can't not afford an apprentice. The first year, he's not going to make you much money, but by the 3rd year, you probably at least break even. And after that, it's an annuity of a good worker. Your business is your business. And if you do not have capable people, if it's a business like mine with manufacturing, you cannot grow without people. And investing in an apprentice program is a sure way to be able to have people that are skilled for you. Sometimes they say, well, this apprentice will leave after I train them. My experience is not. If you treat them fairly, meet their career ambitions, we're going to stay with you. Why would they leave?
And I think auto engineering is a great example of how once you can get a business to see the benefit of having a program, they'll start looking to you to develop more apprenticeships, to fill more vacancies, to have a higher quality workforce. So we're real excited to have them on board.
I think the best phrase I've heard is, well, what if I train them and they leave? And then really the response is, well, what if you don't train them and they stay? You know, it's, you know, kind of a catch-22, you know, so you have to, because it's an employer investment. Let's see. So, you know, with every apprenticeship program, as I mentioned, there's the educational component. And the expectation is that the employer pays for that education component upfront. as an upfront cost. It's not as a reimbursement, because this is an investment into your employees. And according to the Department of Labor, for every dollar spent on an apprenticeship, the return is $1.47. So, and again, it's truly an investment in the employee, which results in a committed and loyal employee. And plus, right now, there are several funding opportunities, such as the DCEO expansion grant that Gina and I are both a part of, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's to help get apprenticeship programs up and running at your organization. And it does support some of the educational costs, offset some of that cost, especially that first year. It's to help a company get up and running. There are tax credits as well. For every apprentice that you have, there's a $3,500 tax credit. And then also, if the apprentice that you have lives in an underrepresented area, there's an additional $1,500 tax credit. So where companies are paying for that educational component, they can get that back in credits. So there's also ITAs, Illinois Training vouchers, that can pay the educational component through our local WIOA offices. There's on-the-job training grant dollars that reimburses the employee for wages that they bring if they bring on a new employee and they're training them for the first few months. There's grants out there that will reimburse the employer for 50% of the wages that they paid that individual. That individual has to qualify to meet that. So there are some guidelines around there. But again, it's money back to the employer. And as well as ETIP funds that can pay up to 50% of training. So there's a lot of funding opportunities out there right now. On this presentation, there is a ROI calculator. You can click on that to kind of plug in numbers and see how much of investment and kind of return that you can get on that. And then there's also a link on here that goes to the apprenticeship education tax credit that I mentioned. And so next slide.
So some things we commonly hear from businesses is that the registered apprenticeships will lead to a union, or that the registered apprenticeships work best for trade occupations. And that's not the case. Not all of the apprenticeships that we have here at the college lead to a union. As a matter of fact, I don't think we have any that do. And then registered apprenticeships work best for trade occupations. That's also a fallacy, because we have culinary, we have business. There are apprenticeships that you can do in all different areas. It's really having a business that wants to make that investment with you to develop a training program that will help out an individual. And so I think that we're dealing with a lot of stigmas. And the way to reverse that is through educating those businesses and those students on exactly what a registered apprenticeship is, not only in the state, but also how it works at your institution, and getting everyone, all the parties involved, to really see the benefits to each and every one of them. And below, you'll see a federal workload data that has apprentices, the active apprentices in employer only, and then the ones in joint labor management, and the percent that are in active programs. And that's all from the Department of Labor, and the link is in the slide when you get it.
Right. Yeah, I work with a number of manufacturers that, some are union, some are not. I've never seen a difference in the two and how they really, operate. And again, there are, there's apprenticeships in like procurement and sales. We're doing 2 now with the German American Chamber of Commerce, where they're focused on workforce development specialists. So, it can just, again, it's the employer determines what the education is and what they're going to be doing on the job. Next slide.
Okay, I think that one is mine. So employers will train someone who will leave for $1 more somewhere else. But here's a little video about what our actual apprentices say about the program and the relationship that they have with their business and the college.
Because every time I go to work, I have something new to learn, having something new to do. You go to school for free, you go to class, you get paid, and then you go to work and you get paid. So when I get out, I'll be debt free.
I'm actually advancing, and I think that's a great advantage in the past.
It's only going to make you better.
They always want to make you the best of yourself as they can. You never want to stop learning.
As soon as I took the first class, I was hooked. I was like, okay, I like this.
Every day you learn something new, and I still do, even 2.5 years after I started, every day I learn something new. I want to become the best machinist that everybody will ever see. I want to make a name for myself. Now I have a career.
I think there is a lot of important facts in there. Those students are coming away with those trainings and those certifications for free. They're not carrying debt with them, and that's an investment. And when they're in our programs here, they feel like they have a whole team working for their success. Their business is working, their school is working, and they're real excited to come back and brag and to continue learning. And we've seen that people who are in apprenticeship programs tend to come back later for additional training at a higher rate than students who are not in apprenticeship programs.
One of the things I wanted to mention about unions too is if there is a union involved within the organization, the union either has to agree to be a part of the apprenticeship program, or they would have to waive the rights. But as it says, yes, we know what they're doing and we're okay with them doing it. But if there is a union involved, there has to be some negotiation work within that. So when I was kind of talking about the apprenticeship expansion grant, the state of Illinois DCO has laid out a plan where, they have navigators and intermediaries that support apprenticeship programs. And we'll give you some website listing here in a little bit that can kind of direct you to those. But Gina and I are both intermediaries. The navigators, they promote apprenticeship programs and connect individuals and companies to the intermediaries who kind of help get the apprenticeship program up and running and connect, get everyone connected. As I said, both CAIC and Elgin are intermediaries. And this here kind of is an example, of kind of how we work. So we do take a consultative approach. You see CAIC here in the middle as the intermediary. Then we would, work with the employer to identify the training and on-the-job learnings. And we work with a sponsor. Now there needs to be a sponsor of the program, and that can be the employer. They're the ones who own the program. So it can be the employer. It could be a community college. Elgin Community College is a sponsor of several apprenticeship programs. Or it could be an industry association, such as CAIC, but we're not sponsors of that. But, so Elgin, who's a sponsor, they already are determined and outlined a number of classes and a number of work processes for several occupations. Now, those can be modified to meet your employer's needs by up to 25%. So in many ways, it's easier for an employer to say, oh, let me just work with a sponsor at your program. It's just much easier, and because you can still modify it to your processes. So the sponsor can be an employer, an industry organization, or a community college. And then I have Elgin listed as our education provider, and then we have the employee. So these are basically the main components to get started. We make the connection between all these groups. We offset some of the first year of the tuition. We help cover some of that, and then we also identify other funding sources to help companies get started. As we talked about, this can really be any industry. Next slide. Now, here's an example of a company that Flexingate that I've worked with. They first leveraged on the job training grant that I mentioned, meaning they brought in an employee. They were reimbursed for wages for the first few months while they trained that employee internally. Then that employee joined the apprenticeship program, and then we assisted them with the tuition through the expansion grant. And then after the first year on the expansion grant, we were able to move them. We have another grant, a one workforce grant, a federal grant that we were able to now move them to. So they're continuing to access grant dollars and adding more apprentices. And they do have two schools, and Nikki here, she will talk about why they started an apprenticeship program. They do work with Prairie State and Ivy Tech. And then they use the motto of, they do work full-time and go to school part-time. So go ahead and run that clip.
Flexingate Chicago is an automotive manufacturer. At the Chicago location, we only supply Ford assembly. We make the front and rear fascia, which is like the bumper that goes on the car. It's got the cooling pack and fans. Headlamps are attached to that as well. Problem our company is looking to solve is filling some really skilled positions that are difficult to find candidates on the outside. To describe the program that we implemented here, we started a Toolmaker Apprenticeship. We did not have anyone in this position at all. I looked for toolmakers for 3 years and didn't find anyone. So we decided to start internally with our apprenticeship program. Our Toolmaker apprentice is Damien Gomez. He's been in the program for approximately 1 year, doing phenomenal in school and also with his on-the-job training. He's been able to work directly under our tool room manager and gets all the experience that a toolmaker would get, and also has A's and B's in class.
So in the apprenticeship, what I am doing is I'm first coming to school, coming to work and learning hands-on. Now I'm starting to work on the milling machine at school, which is really helping me understand the mathematics going into being a toolmaker. What I've learned so far is how to read blueprints. I have learned to work on the milling machine, and I learned how to writing G code for the CNC programs.
Because of our partnership with CAIC, today we have 1 apprentice in our tooling department and 2 apprentices in our maintenance technician program. The Calumet Area Industrial Commission and DCEO helped us find the talent that we needed. The grant funding that's available and that we received has been integral to our apprenticeship programs. We would not have been able to start this without that. Damien has a very bright future with this program. Upon completion, he'll be a full-fledged toolmaker with us, journeyman. And beyond that, if he ever chose to leave Flex and Gate, he'll be incredibly marketable with his skills. He's basically a unicorn.
So my goal for the future in this program is to become the best toolmaker I can be for this company. Because right now I'm actually on the dean's list at Ivy Tech. So giving it up my best, and that's my end goal, is to finish with my certification and be the best worker I can be here at Flex and Gate.
Okay, next slide. And this one is another example. It's Principal Manufacturing. They took part in DCO expansion grant, and they work with the TMA, Technology and Manufacturing Association, as their education provider. Again, it's full-time work, part-time training. They have, because of this grant, have expanded. I think when we first started working with them, they had 3 apprentices. I think they're over 12 now. And so they, I'm gonna go ahead and play this clip.
Principal Manufacturing does steel stamping, which is common throughout the world. But we also do an operation called fine blanking, which is very specialized. There's only a very small percentage of companies that do fine blanking. We are big in fine blanking. That's kind of our niche.
Principal Manufacturing makes automotive parts. About 80% of what we make is automotive. And you can see the automotive parts in your everyday life. With any automotive car that you see, probably has a car part that we've manufactured. I found Principal Manufacturing through attending some metal classes at West Leiden High School, and through the help of some counseling, I was able to get into contact with Julie, the HR manager here at Principal Manufacturing.
Yes, Anthony was a great fit, and he was interested in getting involved in manufacturing. We brought him in as an intern. He worked during spring and Christmas breaks and over the summer.
The apprenticeship program that I entered was the Tool and Die program at Technology and Association Manufacturing School.
So Anthony is a tool and die maker apprentice. He is capable of setting up and running our wire EDM machines. He sets up and runs our CNC machining centers. He also runs the grinding machines, and he does some work with, once the components are made and heat treated, he will do some work with assembly of those components. And that's under a journeyman tool and die maker's supervision.
The things that helped me prepare for this job was mainly my teacher, and she really helped me get the ball rolling with everything. And I actually got a lot of the confidence that I needed from her in order to get my job started here.
Okay, presently we have 2 apprentices in our machine maintenance program. We have 1 apprentice in our CNC program, and we have 4 tool and die maker apprentices presently. Well, the organizations that have helped us out with grants and funding have enabled us to be more aggressive about pursuing students and spending some time getting involved. The program has helped achieve filling positions in the company. And what we are doing is we have journeyman tool and die makers and journeyman maintenance mechanics working with these students that are coming out of high school and giving them an opportunity to kickstart their careers and their futures and making money while they're doing it instead of racking up student loan debt.
The Calumet Area Industrial Commission supports companies who identify candidates for entry-level positions as well as skilled positions. If a company hires an individual, then we can offset the wages they pay that individual while they're training them on the job.
It's also important that the people that are going to school, they have a place to go when they get out of school. And so there should be another place where people can go once they graduate from high school and develop a skill and create a career path and get an idea. Maybe it's not what they want to do the rest of their life, but it'll flick a light on to them as to what they do want to do. They'll see something or they'll be exposed to something that will get them traveling in the direction that will make them happy for the rest and successful for the rest of their life.
So those are, two examples of how the DCO expansion grant has supported, companies. So go ahead, next slide.
So this is in process and this is continuing. We were working with Ascension St. Joe. It was previously AMITA on a BNA or CNA program. This is a little bit different. It was a front loaded. So they were full-time students and not working at the institution and then transitioned into full part-time students and part-time employees and then full-time employees. And that was at the request of the hospital so that they could get them trained in a lot of things prior to them coming. We serve students or individuals in LWIA 5 and 8 through our youth program, and it was funded on the DCEO expansion grant, which helps St. Joe's get this started. And the exciting part about this is St. Joe's loved it so much that they will not be using any grant funds moving forward in our next cohort later this fall because they have taken on those costs themselves. And they are looking at now offering different types of apprenticeships at the hospital to fill the labor issues that they're having and making sure that they have skilled people in those positions. So we're real excited about this collaboration and we hope to see it grow more in the future. And it would not have been possible without the DCEO apprenticeship expansive grant.
All right, next slide.
So there is pre-apprenticeship or youth apprenticeship programs, and they're designed to prepare individuals to enter and succeed in apprenticeship programs or another career pathway approach. And this is a way to also help businesses have someone skilled that are coming in the door to do some of the basic skills while they're working as on their apprenticeship. It's inclusive recruitment. Usually they're underrepresented individuals, their industry focused curriculum and training. We try to lead that to a credential. They have that hands-on learning piece or work-based learning. And then there's retention services for successful participation and completion. Partners with employers and connections to the apprenticeship programs really have helped make these successful. We can do open interviews right after the pre-apprenticeship, so that's a direct pipeline to those apprenticeship program. It's kind of for those individuals who are just not ready to make that jump into an apprenticeship and need to work on basic skills, or they need other skills to make them successful in that area. And then we strive for credit acquisition in these types of programs. Sometimes they can get multiple smaller credentials so that they can enter into that company, and also so that they know that this is the pathway that they want to be on. So they're extremely successful. Next slide.
Here, as I mentioned, connection to resources, right? At your first stop, apprenticeshipillinois.com. There you will find a list of navigators and intermediaries that can, you can connect to. You can also reach out to Gina and I, Gina and me, and you have your American Job Centers, your local workforce areas, Also, apprenticeship.gov is another resource. And then, check with your sponsors of programs, check with your community colleges, see if they're sponsors of programs. I know there are a number of the community colleges around here are. Industry associations are sponsors of programs, and then employers as well. So those are the kind of the categories of a sponsor. So next slide. These are, again, the resources. Many of them are in the northern side of Chicago, and some of them I've worked with. Illinois Manufacturing Association, Cisco is your link to the union trades. The German American Chamber, they have the ICAT apprenticeship program. IMAC is another one. They are recently newly sponsors of 12 apprenticeship programs. And then I work with the James Adams Resource Corporation, Chicago Women in Trade, Revolution Workshop, all have apprenticeship programs in place. And then again, back to your community colleges as well, like Elgin.
And I think it's important to really understand that these organizations are here to help you, and they will answer those questions and be that resource. And I have found there isn't anything as a dumb question, and someone's already had it, and there's probably a document associated to it. So it's really reach out to these partners and use that to your advantage when you're investigating doing an apprenticeship, or even if you're having situations with your apprenticeship.
And questions? Yeah, here's our contact. Please reach out. And I think the last slide is some terminology and so that way when they send that out, you have some information. So, and that concludes our presentation.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Craig and Gina. We do have some time left for Q&A. So we do have some questions coming through the chat that I'm happy to facilitate to you both, and either one of you can, or both of you can answer. The first question is, what's the difference between a registered and an unregistered apprenticeship?
A registered apprenticeship is one that is registered with the Department of Labor. And because when they finish that, the apprenticeship program, then they will receive a recognized credential from the Department of Labor. And an unregistered one means it's just not registered with the Department of Labor. Gina, correct me if I'm...
Yes, and sometimes they are very similar. It
Sure.
is. It can be a paperwork thing. It can be a timing thing where they, haven't had the prep time to put into an apprentice. And the hope is that all of those unregistered apprenticeships turn into registered apprenticeships, because there is a benefit to both the employer and the employee.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. So the next question is, if the training meets the Trade Adjustment Assistance Act required elements and time training time limits, there is trade funding available as well. Oh, that was just Susan answering
Thanks, Susan.
as well. So I apologize. And then you did touch on this a little bit, Gina, but is there any benefit for employers to registering their apprenticeships? So what is some of those benefits for employers, if you guys know of any?
I think that these are tried and true and approved methods always is a benefit, and having a registered apprenticeship is a benefit in itself, in addition to the certification at the end when they've completed it. I strongly recommend all of our non-registered apprenticeships turning into registered apprenticeships here at ECC, and that's what we strive for.
Right, and then plus with the tax benefits as well. So if it's registered, then you'd be able to access the, those tax benefits too. Again, it gives an employee a recognized credential if it's registered as well, because they receive that from the Department of Labor.
Awesome. Thank you to you both. And then the last one that I see come in, and feel free, audience, to continue asking questions in the chat or the Q&A, is what are some retention suggestions to keep people in the program when companies will pay higher wages and they don't have to invest the time?
I think really it would be earning the credential. I mean, right now we are in a in a job market where you can become employed, but do you have that credential in 10 years that you can take somewhere else? I think that is a benefit. I think also the supports that come with being in an apprenticeship program, there is a mentorship, which allows that individual to have that one-on-one connection. So maybe there's something going on in the text, or maybe there's something going on at the job and they just don't feel comfortable, or they're not really certain. They have this person in their corner advocating for them, helping them, training them, and using real life examples in a way that they wouldn't if they were just coming on board. You know, it's really in how you support that student or participant through that process. And employers tend to give more attention to someone in an apprenticeship because it's required. They have weekly check-ins. There is a whole map that they're following through. They not only have that employer as a reference, they have their mentor and they have their institution as well, in case after a couple of years they want to move on. I just think it's a higher quality training that you're in when you're in an apprenticeship.
And the employees also sees, I mean, because again, it's an investment, you know, from the employer into the employee. The employee would see that, you know, they're not asking for tuition reimbursement, or, you know, I have to pay upfront cost or anything. This is, you know, employer paid, employer based. And so, you know, I think that's just going to contribute to retention efforts as well.
Awesome. So I don't see any more questions in the
I think
chat.
Adam had somebody, because he asked the question about the benefit of registering apprenticeships. He said, he asked, tax benefits can't be accessed if they are not registered. That is my understanding, because I don't believe there would be a tracking mechanism of that, but that my understanding is they would have to be registered apprentices. Because there's a system that the Department of Labor uses, called Rapids, and so everything has to be entered into that system.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig and Gina, both of you, for your wealth of knowledge and experience. We greatly appreciate you both presenting this information to us this morning. Everybody feel free to ask any more questions in the chat. Just a couple of housekeeping things as we close out. This session was recorded, and the recording and the slide deck will be available to you on our website and on Illinois WorkNet within about 48 hours, roughly 48 business hours. And then the follow-up email that you will receive tomorrow, it will be from Zoom, and you will have access to the URL where the recording and slide deck are housed, as well as a follow-up survey. So we would appreciate your feedback from this session or any other sessions. And on our website is all of our Workforce Wednesday webinars from all the way back until 2017. So if you really want to dig in the hole, you can. But we have all of our 2022 webinars on there as well. So feel free to check out all of our professional development. We have some really very, very valuable information on our website. So we hope you take a look at that. And then once more, I just want to thank Craig and Gina for their time and their commitment to this session today. And did either of you have any closing thoughts?
The only thing I want to say is don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions to either Craig or myself. I think if we don't have that answer, we do know who to direct you to.
Right. And it's not as complicated as maybe it seems or comes across. You know, again, it's really thinking about it. You lead as an employer, leads the education piece and the learnings of on the job. So those are the two key pieces, really. There's more paperwork and stuff, but the intermediaries that will help you, do all that. So.
Awesome. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. I'm going to go ahead and close us out, and have a great rest of your Wednesday.